When Adebayo lost everything, his wife left him for a rich man. She thought money was everything, but when he became successful again, he got the perfect revenge. Subscribe to the Roots of African Tales to see how love, betrayal, and success can change everything. The blood-red sunset painted the Lagos sky as Adebayo stared at the eviction notice in his trembling hands. 5 years ago, this same hand had signed a ₦1,000,000 contract. Now it couldn't even hold on to their small apartment. "Daddy, are we moving again?" 7-year-old Kemi tugged at his torn shirt, her innocent eyes searching his face for answers he didn't have. Adebayo forced a smile and lifted his daughter into his arms. "Just for a little while, my princess. Just for a little while." But Folake, his wife of 10 years, stood in the doorway with tears streaming down her beautiful face. She had heard everything, the landlord's harsh words, the final warning, the shame that now clung to their family like morning mist. 3 years earlier, the compound buzzed with celebration as Adebayo carried Folake across the threshold of their new 3-bedroom house in Ikeja. Neighbors gathered around their shiny new car, admiring the successful young businessman who had made it from nothing. "My husband, the property king," Folake laughed, her wrapper dress flowing as she danced in their spacious living room. The walls were painted bright yellow, her favorite color, and furnished with the finest sofas money could buy. Adebayo spun her around, both of them giddy with success. His construction business was booming. Government contracts were flowing in like Harmattan winds, and every project seemed to turn to gold under his touch. "We did it, my love," he whispered into her ear, breathing in the scent of her shea, butter-moistened skin. "We actually did it." Little Kemi ran between them, her school uniform crisp and new, her backpack filled with all the books and supplies other children in their old neighborhood could only dream of. She attended the best private school in Lagos, where English was spoken with perfect pronunciation and lunch was served on real plates. "Daddy, teacher said I'm the smartest in my class," Kemi announced proudly, hugging his leg. "Of course you are, little scholar. You're my daughter, aren't you?" Adebayo picked her up and tossed her gently in the air, her giggles filling their beautiful home with pure joy. Folake watched them with contentment that ran deeper than the river Niger. Her husband worked 18-hour days, but he always made time for family dinner. Every evening at 7 o'clock, they would gather around their dining table, a real dining table with matching chairs, and share stories of their day. "The Johnsons want to invest in our next project," Adebayo told Folake one evening as she served his favorite meal, pounded yam with egusi soup, prepared with fresh fish from the market. "That's wonderful, my husband. You're building an empire." "Our empire," he corrected, taking her hand across the table. "None of this would be possible without you managing the home, supporting me, believing in me when nobody else would." Folake squeezed his hand. She remembered their early days in a single room in Mushin, when Adebayo would leave before dawn to look for construction jobs, sometimes returning empty-handed, but never empty-hearted. "Do you remember," she said softly, "when you used to draw house plans on the back of cement bags? And you would say, 'One day we'll live in a house like this,'" Adebayo finished, his eyes twinkling with the memory. Those were the golden days. Saturdays were for family trips to Victoria Island. Sundays for church in their finest clothes, Folake's head tie always perfectly tied, Adebayo's agbada flowing as he walked proudly with his family. Other members would approach him for advice, for loans, for opportunities to work with his growing company. But success, like the Harmattan season, can change direction without warning. The first sign of trouble came on a Tuesday morning when Adebayo's phone rang incessantly. Government contracts were being reviewed. Payments were delayed. Competition was getting fierce, and some competitors were willing to do anything to win. "It's just temporary," Adebayo assured Folake as he paced their bedroom, his phone pressed to his ear. Minister Okafor promised the payment would come through next week. But next week came and went. Then the week after. Then the month after. Folake watched her husband transform from the confident man who once commanded construction sites to someone who jumped every time the phone rang, hoping for good news that never came. "We might need to tighten our belts a little," Adebayo told her gently one evening, his plate of rice barely touched. "How much tightening?" Folake asked, though she could see the answer in his eyes. "Kemi might need to change schools, and we may need to move to a smaller place, just until things pick up again." Folake's heart sank, but she nodded. "We've been through tough times before. We'll get through this too." But she had no idea how much tougher things would become. Within 6 months, their car was repossessed. Kemi was moved to a public school where she struggled to fit in with children who mocked her previous privilege. The beautiful yellow walls of their home seemed to fade as stress and worry moved in like unwelcome tenants. Adebayo would leave early each morning, knocking on doors, begging for opportunities, accepting jobs that paid a fraction of what he once earned. He came home each evening exhausted, his hands rough again from manual labor, his spirit increasingly broken. "Mama, why is Daddy always sad now?" Kemi asked one afternoon as Folake braided her hair. "Daddy is just working very hard for us, baby. He loves us very much." But Folake herself was beginning to wonder if love was enough. The woman who once managed a comfortable home with a housemaid now found herself scrubbing floors and washing clothes by hand. Her beautiful wrappers were replaced by simple dresses that could withstand repeated washing. The final blow came when Adebayo lost the house. They moved into a single room in Agege, the same type of accommodation they had escaped from years earlier. The walls were thin, the neighbors were loud, and the smell of poverty hung in the air like incense. Folake tried to make the best of it, arranging their few remaining possessions to create some semblance of home. But every morning when she woke up on a thin mattress on the floor, reality hit her like cold harmattan wind. "I've been thinking," Adebayo said one evening, sitting on the edge of their small bed. "Maybe I should go to Abuja. There might be more opportunities there." "And leave us here?" Folake's voice was sharper than she intended. "Just for a few months, until I can save enough for us to get a better place." Folake looked around their cramped room, at Kemi doing homework by candlelight because they couldn't afford electricity, at the bucket in the corner that served as their bathroom when the communal toilet was occupied. "I can't live like this anymore, Adebayo." "It's temporary, my love. I promise you, this is temporary." But Folake had heard temporary too many times. She had watched her husband's promises turn to dust, just like their dreams. That night, as Adebayo slept fitfully beside her, Folake stared at the ceiling and made a decision that would haunt her forever. Chief Bamidele owned half the buildings in their neighborhood. His Mercedes-Benz would purr through the dusty streets like a proud lion, and everyone would stop to greet him with respect and deference. He first noticed Folake at the local market, where she now bought the cheapest fish and bargained fiercely for every kobo. Even in her faded dress, her beauty shone like a diamond in rough sand. "Sister, you look familiar," he said, approaching her with a smile that showed gold teeth. "Haven't I seen you somewhere before?" Folake recognized him immediately. In their prosperous days, Adebayo had done some work for Chief Bamidele. They had even attended the same social functions, though she and Adebayo were definitely in the lower tier of the guest list. "Chief, good afternoon. I'm Adebayo's wife, the contractor." "Ah, yes, Adebayo. How is he? I heard business has been a bit challenging for him lately." The pity in his voice stung worse than a bee. Folake forced a smile. "He's managing, Chief. We're managing." But Chief Bamidele saw right through her brave facade. Over the following weeks, he began appearing wherever Folake went. The market, the school where she would pick up Kemi, even the small church she now attended instead of their former prestigious congregation. "Let me give you a ride," he would offer. And initially, Folake would politely decline. But politeness became harder to maintain when Kemi fell sick and they couldn't afford proper medicine. When the landlord threatened eviction again. When Adebayo came home one evening with his lip bleeding because someone he owed money to had decided words weren't enough. "My husband used to be somebody," Folake confided to her sister Bisi during one of their rare phone conversations. "And what is he now?" Bisi asked. Folake couldn't answer, because the truth was too painful to speak. Adebayo was now just another struggling man in Lagos, invisible, forgotten, reduced to begging for opportunities from men who wouldn't have dared disrespect him in his glory days. When Chief Bamidele offered to pay Kemi's school fees, Folake accepted. When he offered to help with their rent, she said yes. When he asked her to have dinner with him to discuss further assistance, she agreed. The first time was just dinner. The second time was dinner and a walk. The third time, Chief Bamidele made his intentions clear. "I can take care of you properly, Folake. You and your daughter. You deserve better than this life you're living." "I'm married, Chief." "To a man who can't provide for his family. What kind of marriage is that?" Folake wanted to defend Adebayo, to speak of love and loyalty and the vows they had taken in church 10 years ago. But when she opened her mouth, all that came out was a whisper. "He's trying his best." "His best isn't good enough for a woman like you." Adebayo noticed the changes gradually. Folake's phone rang more often, and she would step outside to answer it. She started dressing better again, wearing perfume he hadn't seen in months. Kemi's school fees were mysteriously paid, and there was suddenly good food on their table. "Where is this money coming from?" he asked one evening. "I found some small trading opportunities," Folake replied, not meeting his eyes. Adebayo wanted to believe her. He needed to believe her, because the alternative was too devastating to consider. But on a rainy Thursday evening, when he came home early from a job interview that had gone nowhere, he found their room empty except for a note on the small table where they ate their meals. "My dear husband, I cannot continue living like this. Chief Bamidele has offered Kemi and me a better life. I know this will hurt you, but I have to think about our daughter's future. She deserves more than we can give her now. I will always love you, but love doesn't pay school fees or put food on the table. Please don't try to find us. This is for the best." Folake Adebayo read the note 3 times before it sank in. Then he crumpled it in his fist and fell to his knees in the middle of their small room, his sobs echoing off the thin walls. The neighbors pretended not to hear. For 6 months, Adebayo moved like a shadow, searching for work, but empty inside. The family he once lived for was gone. He heard Folake and Kemi now lived in Chief Bamidele's mansion. Kemi returned to private school, driven in a luxury car. Folake wore gold and was called Madam. Sometimes Adebayo stood outside the school just to see his daughter. One day, their eyes met. She smiled, took a step, then stopped and walked away. That night, Adebayo vowed to rise again, not for Folake, but for himself, and to prove to Kemi that her father was still standing. Adebayo started small, as a site supervisor under men who once sought his advice. The pay was little, but he saved every kobo. At night, he studied nonstop: construction tech, project management, international standards. He took online courses, often staying up till 3 a.m. Then came his break. A young Lebanese businessman named Khalil needed a local partner for a small housing project. Bigger contractors rejected it. Adebayo accepted. He gave it everything: knowledge, connections, and pure hunger. The homes were finished 2 weeks early, under budget, and so well built that buyers lined up before completion. "You actually deliver what you promise," Khalil said. "I learned the hard way," Adebayo replied. Word spread. Foreign investors took notice. Projects grew, profits returned, but this time, Adebayo wasn't building for Folake, or even for money. He was rebuilding himself. Every nail, every wall, every deal whispered the same truth. You can't keep a good man down. The irony was perfect, almost biblical in its symmetry. Chief Bamidele's construction company was struggling with a prestigious government contract, a luxury housing development that was behind schedule and over budget. The project was hemorrhaging money, and the chief's reputation was on the line. His project manager recommended bringing in a consultant, a rising star in the industry known for turning around troubled projects. The consultant's name was Adebayo Johnson. When Adebayo walked into Chief Bamidele's office for their first meeting, the older man's face went through a range of emotions: surprise, recognition, discomfort, and then a grudging respect. "Adebayo, I heard you were back in business." "Yes, Chief. Business is quite good, actually." Adebayo's voice was calm, professional, with no trace of the broken man who had once begged for opportunities. The meeting proceeded with careful politeness. Adebayo outlined his assessment of the troubled project with clinical precision. His recommendations were sound, his approach innovative. Chief Bamidele had no choice but to accept his proposal. Over the following months, as Adebayo worked to salvage the project, he would occasionally see Folake at the chief's house. She had aged beautifully, wearing expensive clothes and gold jewelry, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of uncertainty, perhaps regret, whenever she saw him. Their first conversation in 3 years happened by accident. Adebayo was at the house reviewing project documents when Folake entered the study, not knowing he was there. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know." "Hello, Folake." His voice was neutral, neither warm nor cold. She looked at him carefully, taking in his well-tailored suit, the confident way he carried himself, the expensive watch on his wrist. This was not the desperate man she had left behind. "You look successful." "I am successful." They stood in awkward silence for a moment before Folake spoke again. "Kemi asks about you sometimes." "How is she?" "She's doing well, getting excellent grades. She's thinking about studying engineering in university." "Like her father," Adebayo said softly. "Yes, like her father." The weight of everything unsaid hung between them like morning fog. Finally, Folake spoke again. "I heard about your new company. People say you're one of the best contractors in Lagos now." "People say a lot of things." Are you happy?" Adebayo looked at her for a long moment. "I'm successful, Folake. Whether I'm happy is a different question." The project was completed successfully, adding another crown jewel to Adebayo's growing portfolio. At the completion ceremony, as government officials and dignitaries praised the quality of work, Chief Bamidele was forced to publicly acknowledge Adebayo's crucial role in the project's success. Yet vindication truly bloomed later that evening, when Adebayo sat in his new Mercedes-Benz S-Class, engine humming, ready to leave. 13-year-old Kemi appeared beside the window, taller now but still wearing her father's intelligent eyes. "Daddy?" His heartbeat faltered. They talked inside the car for an hour, school triumphs, friends, science fair dreams, and the ache of straddling two worlds. "Mama cries sometimes," she murmured. "She misses when we were a family." He asked if she was happy. "I have everything I need, but I miss you." She hugged him tightly before stepping away, pride glowing. "I'm proud you never gave up." Alone later in his Ikoyi penthouse overlooking Lagos Lagoon, Adebayo tasted hollow victory. Success surrounded him, yet absence echoed louder. 6 months on, Chief Bamidele's empire imploded. Bad investments, political wins, and hidden crimes freezing assets and shredding prestige. Wealth evaporated like Harmattan mist. Folake, suddenly powerless, was blamed for the collapse. "Go back to your husband if he'll have you," the disgraced chief sneered. In the same study where she once betrayed love, she wrote another note, this one pleading instead of abandoning. At 11 p.m., Adebayo opened his door to Folake clutching suitcases, tears coursing, Kemi trembling beside her. "I know I don't deserve kindness," she whispered, "but Kemi needs stability." He studied the daughter who still believed, and the woman who had broken him, yet remained mother to his child, then quietly stepped aside. They sat on his expensive sofa, Kemi asleep between them, fragile bridge of peace. "I made a terrible mistake," Folake breathed. "Yes," he answered. "Can you forgive me?" Long silence pooled. "I forgive you for my own peace," he said, "but reconciliation is different." She confessed fear of loneliness. He spoke of discovering self-worth. Tears met understanding. "You became the man I always knew you could be." "No," he corrected. "I became the man I always was." Kemi stirred. "Daddy, are we home?" He smiled softly. "Yes, princess, we're home." Dawn gilded the lagoon. Some stories end in revenge, others in reunion. The best offer redemption. The future remained uncertain, but hope whispered through the open windows of their hearts, promising gentle tomorrows, ready to blossom with new grace. My besties, what would you have done in Adebayo's place? Would you open your door to the ones who once closed theirs on you? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear your heart. Share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a tale that touches your soul.